Okay, great. Welcome everyone to this evening town council meeting for Portola Valley. I'm just picking up my agenda right now. Okay, so we're all here. Can we have a call to order?
Councilmember Walter,
Present.
Councilmember Hefty,
Here.
Councilmember Flynn,
Here.
Vice Mayor Taylor,
Present.
Mayor Haskell.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great, thank you. I do not think we have any AB 2449 considerations. A report out from recent closed sessions, so I'll ask our town attorney to comment on that.
Thank you, Mayor, Council and Community. I did want to note that at the last council meeting 2 weeks ago, the council continued the closed session regarding the city attorney performance evaluation. As you may recall, there was not enough time to complete the closed session items prior to the 7 o'clock start time. So the council reconvened in closed session after the meeting. Nothing to report out from closed session. I wanted to note a second item, which relates to a prior closed session from a few weeks ago. The town council met in closed session to consider anticipated litigation. And I wanted to report that this was related to the decision by the town and actually all 20 cities and towns within the county of San Mateo to join the county of San Mateo in its lawsuit against the state of California to seek to recover the vehicle license fee shortfall, which is an ongoing dispute between the county of San Mateo and the incorporated cities. And as I mentioned, all of the incorporated towns and cities have joined that lawsuit, which was filed a few weeks ago. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So a lot going on, but not much to report out. There will be future opportunities when things develop to report out more. There's no presentations or proclamations. So next is the town manager report.
Yes. Hello. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, Darcy Smith, town manager. I just have a quick update, but that said, very exciting news in the audience tonight is our brand new permanent planning and building director, Sarah, of course. Some
Welcome,
of you met her
Sarah.
already. Yeah.
Let's have her. We're thrilled. Let's have her full name for those
Yeah.
who haven't. heard
Sarah
before.
Course. And
Okay.
she moved out here all the way from Denver, Colorado. So we're incredibly honored that she would make the trip. She's extremely talented and I would just say in a word, amazing. But she has a lot of experience, not just in municipal government and planning, but also in the private sector. Most recently, she was in a role as the executive director of urban strategy and design in a business and general improvement district in Denver. But she also has more rural and local government experience working for the city of Boulder as a planner and the city of Denver. And before that, she was again in the private sector. She has an amazing background in both landscape architecture, urban design, and planning. And she has a lot of experience doing the work that we do, things like managing long-range plans, like our work on the housing element amendment and safety element, development project reviews, complex community engagement, and regulatory processes. She also was formerly a member of the Denver Planning Board, which is similar to the Planning Commission. So she served on this side of the dais, and she's has extensive experience in that role, making recommendations on land use policies, regulations, and planning initiatives. So she did go to school in California. So very proud of that. It was one of the reasons why she came back. She went to school and studied landscape architecture at Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, and she has a Master of Arts in Urban Design from Newcastle University in Newcastle, which I've been told is far away in England. Yeah, so she is a world traveler. She's done hiking in the French Alps, Australia, New Zealand. You can chat with her about her trips and the next trips. But an interesting fact is that she grew up on what she said was a ranch, but it's 40 acres. So I reminded her, yes, that's a ranch. And she's very outdoorsy and I think will fit in great here. So we're very proud to have her, and she jumped right in and working on lots of the things that the town is working on. But I would invite anyone to come meet her. We're at Town Hall. We are both there full time in the person. And we're, as I've said in past town manager reports, we're trying to engage publicly face to face with our constituents and welcome members of the public and applicants and property owners to come in and talk to us and ask us questions. And we welcome that. So with that, I'll move on to other updates. There have been some pretty significant AT&T and Comcast outages that started way back on November 20th, when there was an unfortunate car accident that hit our power system. We are still suffering from that. I have a report tonight that it's pretty significant. So what I'm going to do with this, because I've been told from AT&T representative, yeah, it's fixed, and then it's not fixed. And we have received a lot of public input. We do have a not well advertised cable and utility undergrounding committee. And so I'm going to toss it to that committee. The chair is Chris Buja. So we have been in contact with him, and I would like to have that committee look into this in a little more detail. So if anyone does have reports of outages, please let me know directly or let Chris Buja know, because we want to research this more and address it. And again, I've been told different stories. It's working, it's not working, it's affected other people. So if you do have AT&T or Comcast service in the town and you've experienced outages or intermittent service, please let us know so we can coordinate with those utility providers.
And they should email you?
Happy
or
to email me.
how?
Yeah. dsmith@portolavalley.net at any time. And then second of all, the audits, which is a big concern here as we strive for town fiscal health. So really good news. Our finance director, Tony McFarland, who's in the audience, keeps plugging away at the town audits. And the good news is that we will have a finance committee meeting in January to review the next series of audits, which is fiscal year 22-23. And we anticipate those will come before the town council for acceptance in February. And marching right along, we'll have fiscal year 23-24. Following that, we anticipate in June, and then 24-25 in September. And my last news is that the town hall will have a winter closure starting on Thursday, December 25th. That doesn't mean no one's around. We have, emergency standby crews if there are emergency needs, and we will reopen on Friday, January 2nd.
Thank you. And Sarah, if I'd known you had been in Newcastle, I know that's an entirely different language there, so you're multilingual by definition of having survived there. But welcome. We're really looking forward to working with you. So, great. So the next item is oral communications. This is for items not on the agenda or on the town manager report. So first we'll go to anyone in the schoolhouse who has an oral communication. I am not seeing anybody. And online there's Rita Gomez. So go ahead, Rita.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. I did receive a call this morning from the president's office of AT&T because of my report I filed with the FCC. Mine has been very intermittent. So we'll see what happens with that. I want to thank all the members of the council for their hard work in the past year, especially our mayor, Judith Haskell. Your leadership has really helped steady our township a bit. We know that you'll continue to do your part along with others on the council if you're not reappointed mayor tonight. I look forward to what our new mayor and new vice mayor, most likely Mary Hufty, will do to help continue to build our town to the vision that we all had when we moved here. Thank you all for what you do, and I'll save my comments about the consent calendar when that comes up. Thank you.
Thank you. 3056, telephone number. Go ahead.
Hi, it's Dana Breen. I'm almost the same point. I know that you guys are going over the council structure this evening, and I know that Craig is probably going to step forward, but I would like to make sure that Mary is the vice mayor going forward. Thank you. And Judith, for you. Hallelujah. It's wonderful.
Okay, thank you. that is an agendized item, but we will still consider the comment. Thank you. Okay, I am seeing Leslie Crease. Go ahead, Leslie.
Hello, Town Council. First of all, I'd like to thank Judith and the whole Town Council for the amazing amount of work they've put in this year. It's been really stunning to watch, and when you consider this is an unpaid volunteer job, I'm absolutely in awe of you all and very, very appreciative of each and every one of you. Second, congratulations to Craig, and I want to throw my vote behind Mary Hefty, or if I had a vote, I hope she's our new vice mayor. And finally, regarding the AT&T outage, there's an active discussion on the forum right now going on as we talk with people who are out. So you can always go look there and get some more data. Anyways, again, thank you to the town council and hats off for Mary. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. Again, we're gonna talk about that sooner, very soon rather. And on the PV forum, we are monitoring that. I know that. All right, I see no other hands anywhere. So we'll go ahead on the very long consent agenda. This is a pretty long one. First, we're gonna take public comment on the consent agenda. So I'm looking in the schoolhouse. I am not seeing any hands raised on the consent agenda. Online, Rita, you already previewed. You'd have a comment. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. On the consent agenda, on the consent calendar, there are a couple of contracts from vendors that we've had long-standing contracts with. And it seems odd that they're on the consent calendar for just the approval on the dais. If it's possible for someone to talk about why these items are, what's changed about these contracts, and are we then limiting the amount of dollars to then get reapproved at another time? Or are there extra clauses? Why are these contracts on the calendar at this time? And are we then auditing all of our contracts? That would be really nice. It's something that the residents have asked for some time. And that would be nice to know, because I know that takes a lot of work. So I appreciate hearing any kind of answer. And these items should be pulled so that the public can find out why these contracts are here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I see no other hands in the schoolhouse or online. So we bring it back to the council. Does anyone wish to pull a consent agenda item? Go ahead, if you have any.
I don't know that it needs to be pulled, but there were 3 typos in on page 72, I think the CSG contract. So I have communicated them to the staff, but I don't know if we need to pull first so I can detail the 3 typos, or.
I'm looking at our special projects manager on these contracts, and I believe they've already been corrected, but maybe Steve, you want to clarify.
Good evening, Mayor Haskell and members of the council. So just to clarify, so those were really more typographical in the contract itself. They're easily corrected before any signatures were applied to the contracts.
So we don't need to discuss substantively.
We need to discuss them.
Okay.
We've noted that and we'll take care of that.
Okay, so as long as the council is comfortable with typographical errors being corrected without discussion, go ahead if anyone wishes to pull anything else.
I would just ask through the mayor that maybe the town manager could just explain why the contracts are on there for renewal.
Okay, I just want to know what else. is
Without
pulled.
pulling them all. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone want to pull anything? Mary? Yeah, put it on.
Hold on. It would be nice to hear a little bit more about the traffic safety report than just to.
That's coming up later.
Okay.
That's
Oh, that's
actually on the
regular.
agenda.
Okay.
You're okay on that. The only thing I wanted to pull was 7G. Okay, unless anybody else has anything. No worries. Do you have? something? You're okay? Okay, so let's have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Well, first, I think it's fair to ask Darcy to explain the contracts and why they're on the consent agenda generally.
Well, they generally are most appropriate on the consent agenda because they're routine items. And we provide a detailed staff report, but they don't typically rise to needing a presentation and be under regular agenda. And they certainly don't need a public hearing.
Okay.
And just to tell you why there's so many right now in December, but we did do an audit. I'm pleased to report that with our staff, we've been doing an audit and we realized that some of our vendors didn't have current contracts. And we did also solicit other proposals and talk to a number of other contract firms for planning and building services and interviewed them and went through a process. And so the contracts that you see today are all vendors that we believe are the best fit for the town's needs and can meet the requirements of the town. And we also updated the expectations for their work products and timelines for those deliverables, especially in building and plan, they mentioned. And so these are current consultants and they need contracts. And so we're doing that. And the contracts will only run through the end of the, would see them again if you choose to renew their contracts in July.
Okay, so Darcy, as you have just joined us in the fairly recent past, you've been going through, and these are items that should have been renewed a while ago. We've been performing just fine under them, and we're trying to correct the documentation.
Correct. Yes. We're trying to correct it and ensure we're in compliance with our procurement policies and contract policies moving
Okay.
forward.
Okay, so if I could have, oh, go ahead.
I'll do it. So I move that we approve the consent agenda with the exception of 7G.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? Okay, so everything but 7G is approved. And on 7G, just because of the magnitude of the cost, I do want to understand more, how did you come up with the number? So it's 500K, and it would be very helpful for us to understand how, we're nearly halfway through the year. Just give some background on how that number was arrived at, because I know it's an up to number, and that's important. We're not committing to spend it, but it's up to. So Steve, go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. It's a good question. And we did look carefully at that number. I think it's a fair number. It could potentially go higher. What's happening with Good City is most of their work is permit related. So it's pass-through costs from development applications, so permit applications. There is also additional costs where we've had the vacancies. So we've got planners now, as described in the staff report, that are acting as the city planner or the city planner that is vacated. And so they're providing on-site service now in that regard until we fill those vacancies. So the two vacancies I'm referring to is the permit technician and the senior planner that we're now recruiting for, both positions.
So, but how did you come up with the 500K? My assumption had been, this is the rate of use of those services up till date, and then you're projecting forward, but let me know if that's not correct.
So that's absolutely correct. So this contract is actually retroactive to July 1st, so it's covering the fiscal year. So money spent to date. The first few months, we've seen the billings and projecting that out. It felt like a comfortable number. It's hard to project exactly what that number will be. It's based on the permit activity.
And if you need to go over 500K, you'll come back to us.
Come back to
basically. Okay. That helps me. Those were my questions. Does any other council member have questions or comments?
So I have one.
Yeah, go ahead.
What's roughly the percentage of pass-through fees of that 500K? I'm not looking for the exact answer, but I mean,
Wouldn't be exact. It's just
Yeah.
from watching the activity.
Yep.
And knowing that we're recruiting and going to replace. So some of the costs would go down, but the permit activity itself, the percentage, I'm gonna say it's probably 70 to 80% is passed through
okay. And then 20% is effectively salary
by
for,
the end of the year. Because I think
Yeah.
right now there's a little bit larger because we're on site and we're answering a lot of questions each day remotely and on site. But that should drop off as we staff up. So we have our director now, and we'll have hopefully a senior planner at some point in 26. And we'll see that come back down. But most of the numbers here are again related to development projects.
Right, great, thank you.
Great. Any other questions?
Yeah, I
comments?
just, a quick question on Good City. In the very far past, like at least 10, 15 years ago, I can remember that when I submitted for a planning permit, the charge was sort of based on the anticipated cost of the whole construction project. So it was sort of a flat fee. And then if, during the planning process, the back and forth, if it took more than, I don't know, 2 cycles or something, then you would get charged by the hour. It would appear that this contract is purely by the hour. Is that correct in understanding it?
It is, and probably this process is a little more complicated because it depends on if it's a building permit or a planning entitlement permit. So separate ways of funding, but you're correct. If it goes over that deposited amount, which we base on 2 or 3 plan checks, then the billing still comes through hourly. So essentially, I think for the purpose of this discussion, Good City is always cost recovery when it comes to permit planning. Actually, all the plan checkers are cost recovery. So the dollars are always coming through from the applicant. And then part of it goes to the town for our overhead and our staffing. And most of those numbers are going to the Good City that's actually doing the work.
And in terms of management of Good City, is there any kind of process in place to help limit their hours and to encourage them to be very efficient?
Yes, I can only speak to since Darcy and I have arrived, so we've been managing that quite closely. We have actually been spending quite a bit of time with each billing cycle, which is each month, going through every charge that the applicant or that the planners are doing. It's hard, we're not overseeing them hour by hour because most of the work is remote. But it does look like it's in keeping. What we're really watching for, though, is to be sure that the cost recovery is captured so that permits or work that's being done is actually applied to the correct account. So to preserve the general fund at all costs. So wherever we see housing work, that could potentially be going to the housing fund. Where we see development work, that's going to the permit application. Where it's general questions, which is general service you provide through the planning and building department, those are general fund costs.
And is that tracking that you're working on right now, is that information being communicated over to the finance department with the Nexus study that they're doing or
Yes.
the usage fee study that they're doing?
That's a very good question too, and there's more to come on that. But we are currently working with the consultant, and in fact, this next week or maybe it's even tomorrow, we're starting with time fiscal analysis for each one of these services that we're speaking of now.
Okay. And then since we did pull this, the three typos are on page 70.
Yes.
Okay. So, Steve, a lot of this pass through, we will recoup. We just have to approve the very large number just to make sure to.
Business going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. All right. So can I have a motion to approve item 7G?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Great. On to the regular agenda. So the first item is the town council reorg. And I'm going to turn it over to the town clerk and the town attorney to run. I do have a short statement to read at some point that's appropriate that you cue me up for.
And the town clerk is going to go over the procedures. And we're kind of just going to move right into the process for nominations and the public comment. So I guess, Mayor, I would suggest that either now would be a good time or perhaps right after public comment might be a good time for any statement that you wish to make.
Let me go first.
Okay.
All right. All right. Not too long. I wanted to thank the town for providing me the privilege of serving as mayor over the last year. The experience has been very humbling, enriching, frustrating, humorous, and meaningful, depending on the specific day and time. While acknowledging the challenges that the town has faced and will face over the next few years, at times of change, it's important to recognize what we as a community have achieved with the hope of inspiring us for what we may yet achieve. First, we have worked hard to put in place a path forward to controlling and managing our town's financial health. We have dedicated much time and attention through our finance director and the entire staff, as well as through our finance committee and town council meetings, to focus on understanding our options for financial stability going forward, including by improving our monitoring, reporting, and audit functions. This has truly been an extensive team effort, which must continue over the next year as we refine our revenue enhancement options and select an appropriate path forward, and as we evaluate the scope and operational aspects of our town's services for the community. Second, we have made significant progress toward eliminating from our housing element the housing site designated for Dorothy Ford Park and open space, as required by the Sunrise provision of our housing element. This area is special because it consists of recreational facilities, valuable conservation areas, and beautiful ancient oaks. The community stepped forward to form an ad hoc site evaluation committee that identified several options for affordable housing at alternate sites. We are fortunate to have such dedicated volunteers on that committee and on so many others who give up their valuable time to help identify solutions to our challenges. We need to recognize there remains much more to do on our housing element and related programs, but we should be proud of the efforts made by these volunteers. Third, we are thankful for the significant efforts made by our interim town manager, Mark Lindner, and our new permanent town manager, Darcy Smith, to understand and engage our community and to help set the town on a path toward more stable management and staffing and more effective services. We must all continue to support Darcy as she continues to get to know us. We must keep in mind she's only been here for a handful of months. Be patient. As I turn over the mayoral role, I encourage the community to continue to be engaged with the town council on the issues we will consider this year. We have a lot to do that will have a meaningful and long-lasting impact on Portola Valley. These issues include selecting revenue enhancement measures and continuing to improve visibility and long-term planning for our town's financial situation, refining our approach for safety in light of wildfire and other regional risks, and continuing to make progress on implementing our housing element and addressing affordable housing challenges. Last, I encourage all residents to continue to participate in our community events and to volunteer in our committees and commissions. Your thoughts, energy, ideas, and passions are a vital part of Portola Valley. We have an amazing town. Let's bring our best efforts over the next year to celebrate and protect it for the future. Thank you for the opportunity to serve as mayor over the last year. Over to Veronica.
Great, thank you. At this time, the town clerk declares the office of the mayor and vice mayor to be vacant. Per California Government Code Section 36801, the mayor and vice mayor of general law cities are selected by majority vote of the town council to serve a one-year term ending at the council reorganization meeting next year. I will be opening the public comment period for the appointment of mayor and vice mayor, and then I will accept nominations for the office of mayor. And when that position is filled, the new mayor will accept nominations for vice mayor. I will briefly review the process that we will be following. Following public comment, I will ask if there is any council discussion or if any council member wishes to make a motion nominating a candidate for mayor. Each nomination motion requires a second. In accordance with Rosenberg's Rules of Parliamentary Procedure, there can be up to 3 nomination motions pending. Once all motions have been made, I will ask if there's any further council discussion, and then the council will vote. The first vote will be on the last nomination motion made. If that motion is approved, there will be no further votes. If it is not approved, the council will vote on the immediately preceding nomination motion. If that motion fails, the council will vote on the first nomination motion. The votes will be conducted by roll call. I will call for votes in alphabetical order by last name. If the council wishes to change these voting procedures, it may do so through a motion to object to the decision of the chair made before nominations begin. Before we proceed with public comment, are there any questions from the town council?
Questions? Okay,
No.
Okay. I would like to open to public comment on this item, appointment of mayor and vice mayor.
great. So per usual, we'll go to people in the schoolhouse. If anyone has comments, go ahead.
I did receive one comment card from Supervisor Ray Mueller.
Oh, we're honored to have Supervisor Mueller. Thank you. Either one, just make sure, test it out before you assume it works.
Well, I came tonight to congratulate. It's on.
No, it's good.
It's good. Yeah. I came tonight to congratulate Mayor Haskell, our former Mayor Haskell, on a wonderful year. Your commitment, you led the city obviously through getting a new town manager. Your commitment to bring the city to lead the council through issues from, as you discussed, regarding the housing element, and then also just the path toward fiscal stability. We at the county are incredibly grateful to you. It takes a lot of work to be a town council member. It takes even more work to be a mayor. And just want to express that appreciation. So I have a certificate of appreciation from the county of San Mateo signed by all the board of supervisors in appreciation of all your good work. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And at the risk of taking a liberty, looking forward to working with you next year. Y'all have a great night.
Take care. Thank you for coming. It's great to see you and good luck with your role. All right, Betsy has her hand raised.
Thank you for your comments. Lovely to follow in your footsteps. I wanted to say that, Judith, I like to think of you as made for this moment and made for this town. Remember that you're also made for very high altitude Himalayan hiking and so many other things too. When I think of you as Portola Valley has had very high altitude moments, we have also had very low altitude moments. And your uncommon clarity, your focus, your completely steady balance under pressure has been so remarkable that I'd follow you anywhere except for to the Himalayas. I just want to call you out and just say thank you to, you will always be in my mind, and I think a lot of other people's too, Portola Valley's Sherpa. Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Betsy.
Thank you.
I will take you on a hike, but not to the Himalayas.
Well, we're going to miss you, but Craig's going to make it much easier as our vice mayor to become mayor, and Mary is going to make it much easier when she is promoted, as I hope that she will be tonight, to vice mayor in the great tradition of Portola Valley. And she will have roundly wonderful support from our two newest members of the council who have made such a terrific contribution since you came aboard, Rebecca and Helen. So thank you all for making this town a really worthy, wonderful place to live.
And
Again.
thank you, Betsy. It's one of our best volunteers and you've been stepping forward this year. Thank you. Hey. All right. So I don't see any other hands raised in the schoolhouse. I will go to online 3056. Or not. Yes.
Dana,
she's
you're muted.
Mute.
Stay,
Okay,
tap to unmute. I wanted
We
to
have you.
just, what?
we now have you. Thank
You
you.
have me. Brava Haskell. beautiful, beautiful job. And I know, I mean, we're in good shape going forward, but I just really want to acknowledge your year. It was wonderful. And thank you for getting us kind of back on track.
Thank you. All right, Karen Askey.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
We can.
Well, I am going to just echo those wonderful thoughts. I was telling somebody just last week that I felt that Portola Valley had come a long way and we were in so much of a better place than we were a year ago. And it's really phenomenal. And Judith, I think that's due to your leadership. And I know you've worked really hard. You've put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into everything. And I know the council as well has been great. And I just want to say that I really appreciate everything you've done. And thank you for taking us to a better spot. And I look forward to next year as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's certainly a team effort, and I think we all deserve to be proud. All right. I think that's it for comments in the schoolhouse and online. So back to Veronica. You're going to lead us through.
Yes, so that concludes public comments on this item. So are there any nominations for the office of the mayor?
I nominate Craig Taylor to be mayor.
Is there a second?
I seconded.
Okay, any additional nominations? Okay, seeing none, I will move to a roll call vote for Councilmember Taylor for mayor, starting with Councilmember Flynn.
Aye.
Councilmember Haskell,
Aye.
Councilmember Hufty,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Yes.
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Very important.
Oh, it's very important. Yeah. We want it to be 5-0. Aye.
Councilmember Walter.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, Mayor Taylor. You may now chair the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Everybody said really nice things. I want to say just a couple of things, and then I'm going to move on to the vice mayor meeting. First of all, I did want to thank Judith for a fabulous job as mayor. And I want to thank my fellow council members as well. This has really been a great council to work on. And I look forward to this coming year. 3 years ago when I ran on, fiscal responsibility, public safety, and civility. And I have to say that this council has been the epitome of civility. I look around in San Mateo at some of the other councils and I'm just like, oh my God. And here everybody has worked together. And I think we've heard it in the public comments tonight. I think people are starting to see the change in the town. And I think that's a credit to this council working together. We've got, a fabulous new town manager. We've got a planner. We've got some great staff. So, this coming year, I look forward, we've got some big challenges to deal with, but, I look forward to working with you all on those challenges and with the staff. I think we're going to have a great year. So with that, where do I drop into this? I think it's just opening up nominations for the vice mayor.
Correct.
Great. So do I have any nominations for the vice mayor?
I'll nominate Mary.
I'll second that. Are there any other nominations? Okay. So there are no additional motions. So the nomination process is now closed and we'll proceed with the roll call.
Councilmember Flynn.
Aye.
Councilmember Haskell.
Aye.
Councilmember Hufty.
Aye.
Mayor Taylor.
Aye.
Councilmember Walter.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Supervisor Mueller.
And being a supervisor, I have to say, that's really hard work.
Nice.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. And we're not gonna change seats. We're just gonna stay where we are, right? Good, excellent. Let's not change seats. So, oh, yeah, I feel, okay, I have the gavel. I'm feeling important now, so. All right, so the next item on the regular agenda, we're considering adopting a resolution for ratifying ordinance number 1425 from Woodside Fire. And Steve, are you doing a presentation?
So I am Mayor Taylor.
Excellent.
So good evening, Mayor Taylor, and members of the Town Council. I'm Steve McHarris. I'm your Special Planning and Building Project Manager. And I'd like to acknowledge at this time Division Chief Kimberly Giuliacci, who is here representing the Woodside Fire Protection District. This item is a request to consider adopting the 2025 California Fire Code and the 2025 California Wildland Urban Interface Code and appendices, also known as the WUI Code. A little brief background on this. The state of California adopted the 2025 California Building Standards Code, including the WUI Code, which becomes effective on January 1st. The California Fire Code and the WUI Code establish the fire hazard severity zones. The WUI Code, let me back up. The California Fire Code and the WUI Code establish minimum standards for protection of life and property from fire. The WUI Code applies to all CAL FIRE mapped fire hazard severity zones, which encompasses most of the town. As you know, the Woodside Fire Protection District enforces California Fire and WUI Code within the town. The district adopted these codes and local amendments on November 18th, 2025, and the codes are now before the Town Council in your packet as Amendment 1, and that is on page 92. They are accompanied by a fire district staff report as attachment 2 on 130 of your packet. The town staff have reviewed the proposed amendments and findings and recommend ratification of the ordinance. Woodside Fire Protection District also requests the council ratify the ordinance. So this time Division Chief Giuliacci and town staff are available for any questions.
Thank you, Steve. So from the council, are there any questions for Steve or Fire Marshal Giuliacci?
I have just sort of a minor question. Under the waterways and flooding, it says that the district's southern boundary is defined by the San Francisco Creek, which originates near Searsville Dam. I would have thought that it would be Los Trencos Creek that is the southern boundary of the district.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for the question. It is a good question. That is within our district, but when we look at the exterior part of our boundary and where it ends, that actually is where it finishes. And that has been in the ordinance. I've actually myself never did that full research because it's been in there for years from fire marshals past and past and past. So I can look more into that if that would be something I can send back to you.
Thanks. That would be great. Most of my questions were answered when we met, so I appreciate your
Okay.
time.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Judith, go ahead.
So there's a reference here to the 50% rule, or there's an implication that certain requirements will be triggered by the 50% rule. Does the district have its own version of that rule, or does it rely on our designation, which I know we've been discussing?
So yes, we do, but within the language, we have language in there that states that if the building department for the towns with which we serve, we would go by whatever their 50% rule is.
So if we need to address that in the next year and clarify that, because it's been something
Exactly.
we have to get to.
Exactly.
That will eventually apply.
And the only difference is the town wouldn't be able to go less restrictive than our 50% rule.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So which I think is significant.
Pardon?
Yeah, I think it's significant.
Okay. So there's, and what I'm focused on are differences between the state law and what yours are. So among those the questions I have, you're clarifying that there are some violations that are misdemeanors punishable by $1,000 fine or imprisonment. Is that, if we don't do that, what is the default?
So
or
the
why did you
fire-
clarify?
So the fire code allows for that modification within our ordinance that we put in. They have a proposed language that's already in there. We just copy exactly what's in there. So we
Oh.
didn't create that.
Okay. And there's language around clarifying that all areas within your district, not just the WUI areas, are now subject to this. Can you just explain?
Yes,
what
so
you're
let me
doing?
back up a little bit just to give a little history on the ordinances in general. With this specific ordinance, so the state of California, every 3 years, they do a code cycle change. They adopt, which they use the model code, and they create their own California Fire Code. The State Fire Marshal's Office, they adopt certain codes within Title 24, which is part of, fire, building, mechanical, everyone has their own code. With reference to the fire code, when they make those changes and they decide to choose what code sections they're going to adopt for the state, then local jurisdictions, they have the authority to make modifications and amendments to that based on their findings for climatic, geographical, and topographical findings, because all the state of California is not the same, and you can't make a bill one size fits all. So we make those modifications. So within those 3 years, we also make those, that's what our ordinance is made up of. It's everything in the code that's been modified to fit our jurisdiction. When it comes to respect to looking at wildland urban interface and fire hazard severity zones, when we adopted the fuel mitigation ordinance last year, which was that defensible space, zone 0, and that we wanted to create a safer environment for our whole district by requiring it across the entire district. The biggest education has been that you're not in less risk just because you're in a lower hazard severity zone, and that when fire comes, wherever the fire finds fuel, it's going to keep moving. So with that consistency, this local ordinance as well, the fire code, has always been applicable to the entire fire district. It's never changed. That's always been that way with the local fire code, our fire prevention code that we have. Now, the one difference you'll see in this ordinance is the state of California created their own wildland urban interface code. That's a standalone code book. It used to be a chapter within the fire code. Chapter 49 used to be the wildland urban interface code. Along with that, Chapter 7A, which was in the building code, also had to do with wildland urban interface areas for construction. So now that California created its own code book for wildland urban interface, what we did was we made that to be consistent with all our local ordinance to make it applicable to the entire district for the wildland urban interface code, because the state, as adopted that book, it only applies to the very high fire hazard severity zone. Had we not adopted those chapters, chapter 4 and 5, specific to construction, it would only be applicable to the very high, so that there is consistency and no conflict with the fuel mitigation ordinance and our fire code. We wanted to make sure that, again, we keep it consistent throughout the district.
So for Portola Valley, I doubt there's a huge amount of area that would not be, absent that code, would not be subject to your new ordinances anyway. Like there's probably not a large area that you're sweeping in, or if so, what is the difference?
So when the California State Fire Marshal's Office, or CAL FIRE, when they created the new maps, finally, the LRA area, a lot of the areas district-wide some went from very high to high, some went from high to moderate. Nobody went up in fire hazard severity zone. Many areas were reduced. And the awareness and what we want to keep communicating to people is not to have this idea that because you're in a zone, there's a magical wall to protect you. And so that's why we want to keep the consistency because of those changes. We want to make sure we keep it consistent.
Thank you very much. The only other question does have to do with the importance of lighting. Lighting's a trigger point for Portola Valley. Generally, we like a dark night. What is your view of the importance of that versus a reflective?
So in our ordinance, there is, and it was there in our previous ordinance, there's a requirement for either an internally or externally illuminated address. With that said, I checked and was made aware because I wanted to understand your outdoor lighting ordinance that you have. And we're not asking, this would be only applicable in new construction, and it's applicable for significant remodels where you would create this illuminated, externally illuminated address. It would not be in conflict with your ordinance because it's not going to be like a floodlight. There's lumen requirements, low lighting, low level, low voltage. So it wouldn't go outside of what you already allow within your ordinance for your outdoor lighting.
Those are my questions.
Ellen?
I do have just a couple of questions. As we sit in this gorgeous historic building, I didn't see, obviously it's for new construction, but hypothetical in case, for instance, we need to cut this in half and do something for 50% or more. What does the code do with historic buildings?
There's actually a code specific for historic buildings, and we would follow that.
Okay.
With exceptions, yes. It's not within the fire code, it's its own code book.
Cool. Thanks. That's my only question. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Mary?
I have the same question, except maybe even speaking in ignorance. I don't understand the combination of percentages. I've heard a lot about it. I've not done my time on the planning commission, so I don't totally understand what rule we're currently operating under and how it relates to your number with its various different things like garages and carports and new attached garages all being included. Does it amount to more restrictive than ours or less?
No, they pretty much run in line. I think the confusion for a long time is the language, the way it is written in the building code currently for Portola Valley.
Yeah.
There was some understanding of, because of it's written, people were concerned that it was being that things were being double counted into the formula, which I know the town is working on clarifying. Ours does not do that. So ours is very straightforward. And when you take, let's just, for example, take a normal house. If you were to do a remodel where you're knocking down walls, adding walls, we look at 50% of that room. So if you only do one wall, okay, that's not 50%. But if you do two walls, that's now 50% of that room. And now that gets pulled into the calculation. And then we take the calculation of all the rooms together on how much has hit those 50%. And we put them all together. And that's kind of how you come up with the general 50% rule on what would trigger.
Okay. But in short, ours is currently.
I wouldn't say it's more restrictive.
More
I think it's just the language that is difficult to understand. But it's not, I mean, they're still taking the
But it
same
really
information that we do.
the more restrictive.
Yeah, with the language, the way it's set forth.
So just for clarification, if you replace a window in a wall, is that 25% of the room?
Mm-mm.
No, I'm making sure. Yeah, that's where we're checking. And then Steve, I think this is a question for you. Have you looked at their 50% rule versus our 50% rule? Because the thing I do worry about is that we end up with competing regulations, and that does concern me. So I'm curious, have you looked at their definition versus what we do now?
Yes, Mayor, we've actually met, we've talked about the comparisons, and even though, yes, our language is a little more complicated, the calculations are relatively the same. The way we calculate
Okay, I guess what I'm looking for is they're either more restrictive or they're the same. And my, I get what I'm after here is I'm looking, and we'll talk more in the discussion part, but I'm looking for us to not to have two standards that people have to meet. I mean, we make building in the town complicated enough.
My understanding is in terms of the plan checkers, the way the plan checkers are plan checking these, that they are the same.
We discuss when it's pretty close and we're always in alignment.
Yeah, please, yes. Yep.
It has been brought to our attention in the last year that the 50% rule calculation needs clarification. I don't know if you've been following that, but it seems that it does need clarification. We just haven't gotten to it as a council yet. And I think just to put it on the table, the worry is that by approving this, we're kind of locking ourselves into an approach for the 50% calculation that we haven't had the chance to think about tonight or not. So, it is putting the cart before the horse in a way to say, are we still free after tonight, if we approve this, to have a discussion on what is the 50% rule? And I think that's, just to be honest with what we're concerned about, that still needs to be done. And there are some good cases for when it doesn't work as our ordinance currently is phrased. But we still haven't discussed it as a body, and we need to. So I don't know if, Steve, you have comments or you do.
I can follow up with
Yeah,
Steve after.
Just a brief comment. I believe you do have the flexibility to amend the code. I'd like to have our city attorney, our town attorney also weigh in on that.
Yeah, because that's where I was going to go. I was going to go back to our attorney and ask, can we, after tonight, come back to this and make some changes if needed?
Yes, absolutely. So, right now, I think what I heard, Kim say is that the, fire district defers to the town's interpretation of the 50% rule. And so that would remain the same, going forward. You can ratify this tonight. But then if in the future, if the council decides to make some changes to the 50% rule, it may actually not even require any changes to this fire code. They will continue to defer to the town's determination of the 50%.
Right, but that isn't what she said.
Yeah.
She said they defer to the town as long as it's more restrictive.
Right.
She made that
No,
clarification.
not less restrict, just not less restrictive.
Which is the same as ours has to be equal or more.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, thank you for the equal part. But so, I mean, I think that's the concern here is if we were to come up with a new calculation, we're trying to make sure that people make their houses more energy efficient or whatever. And we decide that this is how we want 50%, and their calculation says, no, 50% happens sooner, then we might want to revisit this. I don't know that we will, but to
If I
Judith's
can,
points-
if I can say, so the 50% rule in general, countywide, jurisdictionally, right? I think we're putting a lot of emphasis on it. In all the years that I've seen, that is not an issue between building and fire. They always agree on that because everyone does the calculation the same. There's not really a difference with how the formulas they have their own way of getting there, but that conflict, I just haven't seen it happen. And if it is something that happens, it's certainly something that we would work with to make sure that we're in alignment. Because one thing that building and fire will always do is find how we can be aligned, because we don't want that conflict, and we work on it internally to make sure. And I know you're looking at the legal writing on the wall, which is what we default to. And you can outline that as much as you want to still come up with if you do or if you don't. But it's certainly something that just ratifying this code doesn't mean you can't come up with your own or make a change. So that's always available should you ever arrive legally that there's something different that you all are doing. The 50% rule has been in both this town's building ordinance and this fire code ordinance for a very long time. So I don't see that, and it hasn't been a problem before. So I just want to highlight that, if it is, we can certainly work on figuring out where it is that we're deviating from.
Great. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Could I-
Another question?
Yeah, I would be interested in finding out when we changed. The last time I went through the ASCC, which must have been 20 years ago, it was 75%.
I'm going to say
Yeah.
it was probably about 15. I'm going to say I can look back, but definitely in the 2018 codes at least. And then I'd have to see before that when it was done.
Could you clarify just the consequences of somebody doing a remodel where they fall just past that 50%? So they fall into what's now major. What actually is the consequence? It seems to be the fire sprinkler requirement. Are there other?
I wouldn't look
requirements?
at them as consequences. It's not really a consequence. You're increasing the safety of that structure. But what it is not just the fire sprinklers. It's the same for both building and fire. You're bringing it up to current code. So that's what happens when you pass that 50% threshold. You're bringing everything up to current code standards.
So
It's electrical. I mean, there's a lot that goes into bringing
Plumbing,
something up to code.
mechanical,
Exactly.
electrical, everything.
so that may actually, well, yeah, I'm getting into discussion. Yeah, thanks.
Mhm.
Okay, any other comments from the council members? Or questions, sorry, not comments, but questions. Thank you.
I do want to
Thank you,
make
Vice
a
Mayor.
comment because it was a question that was asked, if I may make a comment. One change that we did make that's actually pretty significant. So historically, for many fire codes, when you hit this 50% and you're doing a major remodel, a requirement is you have to check the fire hydrant flow for that structure that's going to be delivering water to that specific structure in that area. The fire flow here for a long time has been set to 1,000 gallons per minute for I don't know how long, but it's been there for a long time, at least 15, 20 years. And with the amount of construction that has increased over time within the last few years and talking to staff that have been here for a long time, this is the most construction they have seen ever in their careers, and they've been here for over 20 years. So with that in mind and knowing the challenges that people are facing, because the fire hydrants in the district were not meeting, many of them are not meeting that 1,000 gallons per minute. And this is specific for homes that are up to 3,600 square feet. It required them to find alternate sources of water to help support that structure. So whether it's tanks, swimming pools, other things. And because of that problem that it was meeting a lot of these challenges, it was not supporting the homeowners on being able to do construction. So after a few months of doing research, I looked into why that 1,000 gallons per minute were required. I really couldn't find justification for other than that we're in a wildland urban interface. But when I actually did the math and did the research, the fire code only requires 500 gallons per minute. And I was trying to see why 5 to 1,000. And when I did the research, I did find that we don't really need to go to that 1,000. So we did reduce it to 750. Basically the way, just for simple math and calculations, every fire hose that a fire department, when they go to a structure, every hose that they pull out, their 1.5-inch hose, puts out 200 gallons per minute. So that's why the fire code allows 500, because typically you have an attack line and then you have one for structure protection for whatever houses are nearby, and that gives you your 500. And because of this fire sprinkler requirement that's in law for the state of California, it allowed that reduction because they know the fire sprinklers are going to help mitigate and decrease the amount of fire within that structure. So therefore less water from those hoses. The reason I reduced it to 750 and not less, going to 500, is because we are in a wildland urban interface. Now we have vegetation that could be on fire, and that would be deploy a third hose for protection, and that would be another 250 gallons per minute. So between all of them is how the 750 came about. So I just wanted to highlight that because it is a significance for a lot of residents and challenges that they've had in their construction. And that was a modification we wanted to make because we do want to support builders and people wanting to remodel their homes and do their projects. And that was one way we did that in our ordinance. So I just wanted to highlight that.
Thank you. Any other comments from the council? All right. Well, thank you, Kim. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
I will now open it up for public. No, we're not. It's not discussion. I'm going to open it up to public comment. Yeah. Sorry, did I say discussion again? My apologies. See, the vice mayor corrected me once, so yeah, sorry. I'll get used to, come on, look, I'm new on the job, I've only been doing this for a half hour. Okay, so with that, I'd like to open it up to public comment. Are there any members of the public that would like to comment? All right, I see nobody in the schoolhouse. So now we have 2 people online. Rita, welcome.
Hi, thank you for taking my comment. On page 87 of the packet, there's reference to Woodside Fire not being able to enforce modifications of the ordinance if the town makes these changes. I'm glad that we have more planning staff in town, but I hope that the town does decide to make ordinance modifications, that the town worked with Woodside Fire on thinking through any modifications, and that the town help the Portola Valley residents understand what these possible modifications might mean for them concerning insurance renewals, and really work closely with Woodside Fire, get some support. This is something that we as a town have not done a very good job with in the past. And we have lots of construction, as already been said tonight, but not many ASCC or planning meetings happening in the past year. So I hope to see more meetings and the public learning more about what's going on in the town now that we have more planning staff. Thanks.
Thank you, Rita. And just for clarity, if the town were to make modifications to the ordinance, we would be responsible for enforcing our modifications. Otherwise, the district's responsible for enforcing the ordinance as written. So it's not that it's not going to be enforced, it's just if we had made a modification. So in this case, the district will be doing the enforcement. So now let me go on to Dave Cardinal, welcome.
Oh, thanks. First, obviously, whatever we can do to help reduce our fire risk is great. But a couple of comments. One is, I think we're at risk of making it even more confusing and expensive to develop or remodel. If we or you in this room can't in one sentence describe what a 50% remodel is, that means everyone who wants to remodel is going to have to hire a lawyer and an architect, and you're going to have to fight it out, and it's going to cost them money and us money. If a civilian can't figure out if what they're doing meets a rule, I think that's broken. I think we need a human readable government, personally. So that's one thing. I think the other thing is, I don't think and I get why, we're not picking off the low-hanging fruit. MJ Lee did a personal survey walking around town and found at least 81 shake roofs. And I almost guarantee that fixing those shake roofs is going to be way more important than a lot of the things we're talking about. So I get why we're talking about the things we're talking about, because they're easy to talk about. But I don't see that in a town full of fire traps, probably including our house. We have a nice roof. Nickel and diming new construction is the best use of our time. I get why we're doing it. I get why we have to do it, but I don't think it's going to move the needle much compared to somehow upgrading the structures that we have to, roof is like super easy and they need to be replaced. And why don't we crack down on that would be my thought. So I'm all for this, but it's gotten so confusing that, yeah, I might get it because I'm a nerd, but I don't think most people in town understand a lot of this. And it just winds up making new construction harder. So thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Are there any other public comments? All right, with that, I'm going to close public comment. I'm going to bring it back to the council, and we're not going to do questions. We're actually going to do discussion now. So why don't I start with Rebecca?
I mean, in general, I'm for the ordinance. I did have concerns about the illuminated address, but I think those have been addressed. The reality is it only impacts new buildings and major remodels defined as 50%. The expectation is in that situation, all of those cases would go before the ASCC, so they would be required to adhere to our dark skies requirements. And I did a little search on Amazon and, well, maybe on the internet, let's say. And there's actually quite a few options out there, but it was interesting that most of them are 3-inch, not 4-inch numbers. So that might be something to discuss a little bit, you know, as the fire department puts together its guidebook on how to implement some of these rules. Maybe they could look more closely at that sort of thing, whether a 3-inch or 4-inch number would make a huge impact. Since I actually couldn't find any 4-inch ones. So the reality is that's not going to have much of an impact on the town because we really don't have that many new homes going through the system. So the code does require everyone to have reflective addresses at a minimum. So I certainly would like to encourage everyone talking about low-hanging fruit. Since I've been briefed on this ordinance a couple weeks ago, I've been driving around. As I drive around, I've been now noticing, and it's pretty dramatic how few people actually have even a number on their mailbox. So I can understand how difficult it is for the fire department and the emergency services to find your home if you're having a heart attack. So I would certainly encourage everyone in town to go and put reflective numbers, at least on their mailboxes. In terms of the 50%, I do agree with Dave Cardinal about how I do feel it does complexify a bit the system. And I can kind of talk about my situation. I would love to replace my single pane windows because that's a huge fire hazard. But half my home is already remodeled, so those windows are good. It's the other kind of half, defining how we determine that half that needs replacing. So, you know, windows are extraordinarily expensive, just mind-boggling. So, you know, if I hit that 50%, all of a sudden I do have to kind of tear up the whole part of the house that was done 15 years ago. So it starts to be a disincentive for me, you know, and just in terms of money, you know, you have to come up with a lot more money. I mean, the windows are already obscene. And then when you start tearing out loads of drywall to put in sprinklers, and then you have to bring up other things to code. Sure, I'd love to do that, but we're talking now over $1 million, which I don't personally have. So I think we kind of need to think a little bit in terms of, you know, what is that low hanging fruit? What will make the residents safest, and really focus on those. But I don't see us, given that the town already has a 50% rule. I think the difference between our rule and the fire department's rule are pretty small, if any. So I think it's just a matter of clarifying the calculation to make sure it's pretty much identical. I don't see us being able to go out with our own 50% rule that's slightly less restrictive than the fire department's. I just don't see that as a reasonable process. Other than that, I don't see any other major issues. I don't see any issues really with approving this new code. Thanks.
Thank you, Rebecca. Mary?
I have no further discussion. I think congratulations on doing this work. It's hard work. It needs to be done, and you're doing your very best to make it even throughout the system, which is not easy.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Hefty.
Thank you, Mary. Judith?
Sure. So I'm a pragmatist in large part. I think Dave Cardinal's comments resonate with me, which is if you keep it simple and you keep it affordable, you're going to eliminate a certain percentage more effectively. So I do have concerns around making things more straightforward. I think the town should take up the 50% rule and clarify it soon. I mean, I know it takes some work, and I would like to see that come to the next level of clarity. I think good points have been raised about our current ordinance that need to be considered. We want people to opt into upgrading and not think that they need to hire a lawyer in order to determine whether to remodel. So it's in all of our interests to clarify that. I am very concerned, though. I don't want to get into a situation where we say our 50% rule is less restrictive. I mean, I know the intent is there, and I think the fire department is very wants to be receptive to constructive frameworks. But for example, I think our 50% rule, whatever we end up with that being, needs to be something that we're comfortable with as a community. So I do have concerns around a potential conflict between, you know, what this ordinance does and where we'll end up. And I'm not sure what our flexibility is to say things like, can we remove that language? For example, if it's not required by the state, but it is required by the Woodside Fire Protection District, I'd rather have people have a clear rule and have a very clear path to, yes, you need all the sprinklers and everything, or no, you don't. I think that's going to be more effective for safety in our community than wondering whether our rule is more or less restrictive. So I guess it's a question for our town attorney. Is it, if in my dreams I wanted to just say are superseded, is that something we can do, or would that have to come back? Because I really do want this to move forward. We need to be safe, but I don't know whether that's something we can optimize or not.
So the council has the discretion to modify or reject any of these local amendments. If you do so, you need to provide reasons related to local conditions. In terms of if the council were to reject the district's local modification, because as you say, that's a local modification, it's not in the state code. I think what is not clear, I think I would need to probably do some more research with staff unless staff knows, is if that were rejected, well, then the town has its own 50% rule. So what would there really be much, distinction there between the two rules? So I'm not sure that would actually move the needle at this point. Now, if staff and the community do more work and determine, well, there's a better approach to the 50% rule, and that could come back to the council. I think at that point, then the council would also need to make that amendment to the fire code and provide the reasons for rejecting the district's local amendment. But that doesn't have to be done tonight. That could be done in the future.
What would we have to do tonight to preserve that flexibility in the future? Anything? Or if we say, yes, this is all good, we accept it, in the future, are we free to make that determination?
Yeah, I believe we are free. I mean, I guess I would want to confirm with the district that you don't see it any differently, but I don't see any restrictions in state law in terms of the council not being able to change its mind in terms of rejecting a local amendment.
I think you could always do it later, and you just have to make the main thing I would reiterate with local amendments. You have to make local findings, and in theory, they could change. You never know. We could have some changes. But I think you make them at this point in time, and then you could change them in the future.
Yeah, because to be clear, I think my hope and aspiration would be that they are very much synced up. But we have seen some of the corner cases under our 50% rule that don't make sense. So I do want to preserve the ability to do the right thing when we get to that on our agendas, whenever that is. And then in terms of illuminated versus lighting, I'm not sure whether I've seen any support for lighting is better than illuminate or reflective. So I personally think if reflective were adequate, I would just go there, because the more our night skies are interrupted with different types of lighting, and I see that every year, there's more lighting in town. There just is. So can we be flexible, and what is the effectiveness of that alternate approach? Do we know?
So we did a lot of research on this, so I apologize if there was any confusion in the past, but we all met today and we synced up.
Okay.
And what Ms. Giuliacci said, Fire Marshal Giuliacci said, is our ordinance, our local ordinance, our general, which is rooted in our general plan around dark skies, which is in our zoning code, is still effective and in full force. And it will overlay the fire code that requires illumination of the numbers. And so the numbers for the house illumination shall comply with our ordinance. So there won't be different lighting or more lighting because of this requirement per se, because
We would supersede? We would,
There-
ours would win?
well, yeah, if someone said, hey, I need super illuminated address numbers,
It wouldn't happen.
it wouldn't happen. Our ordinance regulates the lumens and the intensity and requires the full cutoff to preserve the sky. And so I'll just break it down. We get a building permit that requires illumination, because I saw one yesterday. It goes through them and she'll say, you need illumination. And then our zoning rules apply, and our planners and plan checkers review it and make sure it meets our local ordinance for the dark sky, which has very specific intensity requirements, cutoff requirements, et cetera. So they both apply, but you have to meet both. It's essentially what I'm saying.
And
And they're
from
not-
implementation, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that within that ordinance, because it does say that it gives lumens, so our ordinance doesn't say it has to be a flood. There is no specific illumination. It's just that it's illuminated. So because you have an ordinance in place that regulates that, it would then fall into what the town wants for that lighting.
Okay.
Mhm.
So
Oh,
it-
and
it
back
is
to your
a-
reflective, I just wanted to let you know, reflective, it's
Yeah.
great for existing construction, but there are challenges, which is why it's not adopted. We don't look at it as being for new construction, because it all depends on the height, the angle, because our apparatuses are different sizes, ambulance, if they don't hit that with their lights, they still won't see it. And there's different angles at which they're approaching that still makes it hard for them to see. So it's better than nothing, but not the alternative to what we'd want to have.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Judith. Ellen?
So, thank you to what our fire department protection district does to keep us all safe. I will tell you, because I did build, and I talked to you guys about this, how challenging it was to figure out the address situation. And animals knock over lights in my yard all the time. So like, and the electrical wires are a nightmare. So actually I went on Amazon too, respectfully, and solar. There's some great solar options. I found 31 options at 4 inches tall that you can do that are illuminated. And they were like, so right now I have the really ugly ones that my contractor put up, but I'm going to get the solar ones. So I found that as a good solution. Really handsome looking. So definitely recommend those. And they'd be, keep us safe. So I wanted to mention that solution. In terms of the 50%, I really like Los Altos code that it just says 50% of a building's permitted floor area or exterior walls. I don't know if we want to do exterior walls, but it's pretty simple. Just wanted to mention that. I do like that. In terms of, the fire hydrants, 1,000 gallons per minute to 750 gallons per minute. Wanted to mention water meters. I always bring this up because, for those of us who have 1.5-inch water meter that Cal Water just likes charging everyone exorbitant amounts, you can go down to a smaller size and it will not impact your fire hydrant safety, right?
So let me just touch on that. So that only depends if your house is sprinklered or not. So if your house is sprinklered, then we would require a letter from your fire protection company, whoever did it, to make sure that if you were to reduce, that the demand is still met for the system. If you don't have fire sprinklers, because I just did a letter the other day for a gentleman who has no fire sprinklers, but for whatever reason has 1.5 inches, we reduced it for him because there was no reason for him not to have a smaller meter. He doesn't have a fire sprinkler system. So we did, and Cal Water requires that letter from the fire department to make that change. So those are kind of the differences.
Right. So at 1.5 without any water, it's over $200 a month just for your water meter. Right. So you're paying, a lot of money just for that water meter. And if you're not using that size.
Helen, can I keep this on? I mean, we're kind of deep ending on the water meter. So we're trying to.
But it
do the
does play
ordinance.
into the safety
But
issue.
But the agenda item is
Right.
the
But
ordinance.
because that number got changed I did want to bring this up.
But the
again.
number she changed is for a fire hydrant, not a water meter. They're completely different.
But it does tie to the house safety and water sprinkler system.
The 750 in the hydrant is the fire hydrant that's out on the street.
I understand
It's
that.
not tied to,
But it does actually because of the water meter, respectfully, Mayor.
okay. Are we done talking about the water meter though? I want to move on to the ordinance itself.
Respectfully, I am done, but
Thank you.
I find it surprising by your comments.
Well, I'm happy to ask the fire marshal, are the fire hydrants and the water meters related?
Yes and no. It
Okay.
is when it has to do with the fire sprinkler system. It doesn't when you're just looking at fire flow for the overall structure.
Right. And so the 750 that you proposed.
Is specific for just a remodel, not bringing in the calculation of anything to do with fire sprinklers. It's just for the fire hoses to tie into during a structure fire.
Thank you.
Okay. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. So first of all, I'd like to thank Fire Marshal Giuliacci. I think you're doing a fabulous job. I think as we all know that there's a lot of risk in the town for fire. And having you here, I think you've been pushing a lot of important things. I think some of them are tough pills to swallow, but I appreciate the work that you're doing. So thank you for that. On the 50% rule, I'm happy tonight, from my point of view, moving this forward to what's there. I would like to see both the town review their 50%. And then if they're not in conflict, then great. And that's kind of what you propose is they're probably not in conflict. So then there won't be an issue. And if there is, then we can revisit this and we'll figure out what to do then. The other thing in reference to Dave saying, well, I can't figure this out is the great thing is the town has planners that you can call up and they will tell you, like they'll help you. Like that's why we have the planners. You can schedule a meeting with our planners and they'll help you walk through this. And that's one of the great features that we have. When you're thinking about doing a remodel, I would recommend that you go get them, spend a half hour with one of our planners so they can tell you these are the things that you might have to think about. So you can basically get ahead of that. I do think that when we review the 50% rule, I think we also want to focus on efficiency. I think that's going to be part of what we do. And then the last piece was addressing Dave Cardinal's suggestions on existing units. And what I would recommend is, we have Wildfire Preparedness Committee and we have WPV Ready as the ways to inform the residents. And I think Dave's absolutely right. I think residents, if you have shake roofs or if you have, wooden, cedar siding, you should seriously look at things. And there's some inexpensive things you can do. Not everything requires a complete replacement. But based on, the fires in Southern California, there's kind of a restriction on what you can limit on existing homes. My understanding, and, Fire Marshal Giuliacci, if you can chime in, like the home hardening stuff at this point is kind of put on hold until 2030 or something?
As far as state goes, it's gonna be a while because right now they can't go retro. It's only as new construction comes up, so it won't do anything for existing. And us as a fire district, it's always recommendations we make. There's nothing we can enforce.
Yeah. So I think that's where we're at. So, from my position, I'm comfortable moving this forward. Are there other comments in terms of the actual, getting a motion on the table?
I have a question for you on the statement you made about energy efficiency and the 50% rule. What is that?
Oh, so just, and I don't want to do, just like told Helen not to dive too deep into this. I don't want to dive too deep into it, but if you're putting, like, let's take Rebecca's case. If you're putting in new windows, because you have single pane, and we say, wow, if you put in new windows, just the windows that are there, and you put in new windows and somehow you trigger the 50%, that feels like kind of the wrong rule. Like somehow, like, we're trying to encourage people to be energy efficient. They really haven't changed their house in a significant way. And if all of a sudden it costs $1 million to do, because I get it, once you bring it up to code, there's a lot involved. So that's what I had in mind, is just, we need to be a little more mindful when we go and look at our 50% rule.
I completely agree, but to be clear, it's unrelated
Well, and that's
entirely to the fire.
Right, and
issue
then,
before us.
right, and that's why I tried to say I didn't want to go
Yeah,
too deep,
okay.
because just like I told Helen, it was the same thing. It was a
worries.
little bit of a sidetrack.
That
So
helps me.
yeah.
Okay,
So my
thank you.
apologies to Helen for my sidetrack. So, okay, so
I just want to clarify this 50% idea, because my understanding is that if we adopt the current fire code and it turns out that our 50% rule is less restrictive, then the fire department will use their own code.
that's correct. And
If we want to use our current fire 50% code, our building code, which potentially was less restrictive, for example, if we had an exception for if you're redoing your windows or something, we would have to today, when we adopt this, say, we're going to use our own 50%.
No, so what we heard from our council
today.
was, we don't have to do it today. We will, if that were the case, let's assume that it's the case, then we would have to bring this ordinance back to the council and we would have to make that modification. But we can do that 3 months from now, 6 months from now. It's not a requirement.
A future modification would be, we bring the code back and we say, we are no longer going to follow Woodside Fire's 50%. We're going to follow our new 40% or 70% rule or whatever. And that would be.
That's correct. We would have to provide the findings for rejecting the district's local modification. That would be the one additional thing, but that can be done at a future date. It does not need to be done tonight.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right, so with that.
I have
more
a
discussion?
follow-on, I'm
Yeah?
sorry.
Yeah, no, let's
Um,
add for discussion.
So if today our 50% rule is at odds, who is the arbiter of whether ours is more restrictive, or who decides on a given project?
Well, both parties decide. If we decide you don't meet the standard, then you have to meet our standard. The fire department decides it doesn't meet their standard, you're not going to get a permit.
So it's the most restrictive standard that applies. In which
Yep.
case, Rebecca, if there's a discrepancy around window treatment, there is a possibility that you don't get to do your windows because there's a discrepancy. So this goes back to Steve in terms of, are there many cases you can foresee based on what you know today where there's a discrepancy? Like if there's a lot of instances, then I want to know. If there's corner cases that we can all convene a conversation around and have a future clarification around, that's a different thing.
The best response I can give you is the building official would work closely with the fire
Yep.
district in coming to an agreement if there was a disagreement in any way. And I have not seen, since I've been here, any such case of a disagreement that couldn't be resolved.
Okay.
And if I can just add just something for food for thought
Yeah.
while you guys go through this. something that other jurisdictions do, like Woodside, and it would bring windows, for example. They do have that exception to the 50% rule when you're doing a like for like or a replacement. So like windows, roofs, they don't count in their 50% rule.
Right.
So a roof remodel, you know, so I mean, those are things you can also add into your ordinance of saying, well, if this is the type of, this scope of work, it wouldn't count towards that 50%. And we're
you're-
always in support of that.
You're okay with that?
Absolutely. It's
That's what I
gonna,
wanna
it's
know.
to increase the
Thank you.
safety of the structure, for sure.
Okay, that's very helpful. Practically speaking, it can be worked out. That's what I wanted to hear. Thank
Mhm.
you.
All right. So is there any more discussion? So with that, I would entertain a motion.
All motion. We recommend adoption of a resolution ratifying ordinance number 14-2025 of the Woodside Fire Protection District, which adopts the 2025 California Fire Code and the 2025 California Wildland Urban Interface Code, including specified appendices and as modified by the local amendments, and determining that the project is exempt under CEQA.
Do I have a second?
I'd like to second that.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? All right. With that, I think we can vote on this motion.
You can call for it because
Call-
you don't need a roll call.
So all in favor? That's true, we don't. We're
Yeah.
past that point.
Yeah.
Great, excellent.
Aye.
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 Great, motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you very much, Mayor Taylor, Vice Mayor Hufty. Congratulations to you both, and thank you, council members. Appreciate it. Merry Christmas, everybody, and Happy New Year.
holidays.
Happy
Thank you for all
holidays
you
to you.
do.
All right, now moving on to the next item on the agenda, 8C. Consider the adoption of a resolution adopting the Portola Valley Local Road Safety Plan and determine that the project is exempt from CEQA. So, Robert, are you doing a presentation or who's up for this? Okay, great.
So, is this working? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you just have to be very close.
Okay, very good. So, myself and other staff members in conjunction with BPTS have prepared the local road safety plan for consideration, and or adoption. Before we start, I'd just like to make it clear that this plan overall is intended to provide general guidelines. It does not provide restrictions. If you look through the executive summary on page 8 of the document, in addition to further pages with the purpose of the plan on page 10, you can see that the plan is intended to provide general guidelines to assist the town of Portola Valley in seeking future grant funding. That is all.
That's it?
Yeah, do you want me to give you a general overview? Do you have any specific questions?
I don't
on
know.
this?
So council members, would you like a general overview or do you want to just ask Robert questions?
Questions are good.
Okay, all right. So questions for Robert?
How much of this is required by statute? How much of it is filler and elective?
This is 100% elective. There are no specific statutes in here. If you refer to page 10 of the document and the purpose of the plan, this provides a strategic framework. It is not statutory by nature. The intent of this is to provide a framework which then allows us to seek grant funding from various organizations that do require a local road safety plan. I believe this is also going to be included in the county's overall local road safety plans as they have various other cities.
Okay, and for the record, in terms of binding nature, because there's a lot of complex policies and budgetary implications that if I literally thought if I were saying, yes, we do this, now we're committing to the $4 sign level of expenditures, which on a restaurant, you never really want to go near. How do we think about that?
So I think this is overall a list of potential items for town council to consider in the future. I think essentially these are all items that would be nice to have that are likely not possible at this time with our current budget. But I think the best way to consider this plan is a 10-year and 20-year plan for our future and what we'd like to see. I'll be the first one to say I would love to see a multi-million-dollar grant. I don't think we're going to see that in this town, given everything. What I do think this provides is a framework for various items we would love to see. And I think I would encourage town council to realize this ultimately is a multi-year plan and ultimately a bit of a wish list on items that would make our already excellent roadway safety even better. All items on this list would require going through town council, going through capital improvement projects and budgetary processes. This is ultimately just a guideline. It is not bringing a resolution that is moving forward with any of these items. It is just a general presentation, going over the general character of the town, ways we can make the town more safe, and suggesting potential projects which would then allow us to seek potential funding if we wish to seek grant funding for any of these individual projects. Furthermore, we are allowed to modify these projects with various, we go through the various design elements, and when I review them as town engineer, the only items that are essentially binding are items that are already binding, which are the municipal code, MUTCD, traffic code, state law, so on and so forth. Does that hopefully make more sense?
Yeah, that's very helpful. And just tell us a little bit about the process, like who's already weighed in and time frame over which this was developed.
Yeah, so this was developed over quite a few years. Actually, Howard originally helped with the original document. BPTS was already also significantly involved. As part of the process, the county actually provided a general template for the town to consider. In review of that template, my understanding is that Public Works at the time with Howard and BPTS did not believe it to be necessarily in line with the unique character of the town and the town's rural nature, along with the various, pedestrians, equestrians, bicyclists, and vehicular traffic that goes through the town. The town only has, for instance, 2 main roads that go through it, whereas other towns are different. We have a lot more rural trails than most other towns. We have a few very significant intersections, whereas other towns have far more traffic and far more intersections that may be less significant. Essentially what happened is that I believe BPTS and Howard originally looked at the document provided by the county and decided to use it as a general framework, and then worked on developing this document, which overall discusses more of the character of the town and various interests. This plan incorporates various items, including studies done multiple years ago, traffic studies and crash studies. The total document is 80 pages long and generally goes over those items.
So you feel it's been tailored for our unique circumstances over the years of development?
Yes, I believe this is very tailored towards our unique circumstances. It speaks very much on various accidents that have happened in the past in the town. It has specific examples. It utilizes studies we've put together in past years. I believe it is a very comprehensive document. Again, it is ultimately just a framework. I would encourage flexibility when we decide to move forward, because obviously this is not something that necessarily we pursue all these options in the next 2 or 3 years. This just provides a list of potential projects that we can consider moving forward that will allow us to seek grant funding for these projects or similar projects.
Okay, those are my questions.
Thank you, Judith. Other questions, Mary?
Yeah, I was just curious, having been the liaison for the BPTS, how much work it was for you and how it played out for your relationship with BPTS and staff. It's wonderful to have it, and we needed to have it. But that was my question.
The majority of this report was prepared by BPTS, and I believe Howard was involved in the original process. Specifically, Angela Hay did a great
Right.
job in creating the original draft of this, along with other members were instrumental, including Ed Holland, Pat, and Kevin. I believe there's one more member now of BPTS as well. But Angela Hay did an excellent job in assisting with this and did the vast majority of the initial work. I reviewed it afterwards and was involved in a number of minor modifications. At the time when I came on board as your town engineer, the general local road safety plan was already fairly developed in its bare bones elements and had already been gone through a series of revisions in which it was presented, I believe, to the county as a draft and discussed with some of that county members. So myself, along with BPTS, made the decision to not have significant alterations to it, given that it had already gone through a number of processes and discussions with various authorities having jurisdiction.
So does that amount to 10 hours, 8 hours of work, 6 hours, 20?
I would say across 2 or 3 revisions, probably I put in maybe 3 to 4 days maximum. And then I would say that Angela likely put much more in. You'd have to ask her about her.
No, I can. Yeah, and I think that, I guess the question here is, the service that she does on the county served us well from your point of view. Did the service she does on the county serve us well?
Yes.
She's on the county committee, yeah. Great, thank you. I think those are my questions. I did have one addition to the bike teams that you have on there. I don't know if it's too late for that, probably is, because we had a major with the U.S. cycle major incident with the U.S. Cycle Association, and it's not on the list. I don't know if it's too late to add that or not. I have their contact information and so forth, and they do a fundraiser every year out of Montrose, and have a big event that we need to get permits for.
We can certainly add that to the list, as I believe, as long as that's included in the final.
If it's included in the motion to add that, great. Yeah, but otherwise, but I would also tell you, this is basically finished. And so if it's minimal, yeah, let sleeping dogs lie.
No. I'm gonna get those.
Rebecca, do you have any questions?
Just a quick one. It was my understanding that in the development of some of these potential future projects, the idea about it was to be very all-encompassing, because the writers were under the impression that we could apply for a grant for an item if it's in the plan. Can you kind of clarify how that works in terms of applying for grants? Does it specifically need to be in this plan, or something similar to something that's in the plan, or?
I believe it would partially depend on the grant specifically, but I think that it would have to be within the intent of the local road safety plan to support a project that then we would apply for a grant with. I think the easiest method of having something explained with this given intent would be to have it either directly mentioned in the plan or to be very closely related to what's mentioned in the local road safety plan. Overall, the local road safety plan is fairly all-encompassing. So I believe we could justify quite a few projects given what's mentioned and given the data and various items.
Thank you.
Helen, do you have any comments or questions? Sorry.
I do. Um, first of all, a huge thanks to Pat, Caroline and Angela, who all worked on this. Yeah, Angela definitely did the heavy lifting, but Pat did a ton as well, and I believe Caroline helped as well. So, when I saw this first draft, about a year ago or something, I don't remember. At that point, electric bikes were not as big of a problem as they've become. So my question is, and there is state legislation that will be proposed, and there are pilots that go into effect on January 1st. But my question is, do we need to include anything more about e-bikes at this point in this doc?
I would say that we do not need to include in this specific document, given the timeline it's been worked on. I do not believe any of the specific projects would change, and any of the specific projects we're mentioning would likely change. I don't think we have enough data on the specific implications of electric bikes with accidents, crashes at this time. I think that's something that should be discussed perhaps separately.
And the data is coming in from Marin, so I hope that we can discuss it soon, because it will take a year for anything to go into effect, and we can at the local level do things around e-bikes. Yep.
I believe there's been discussion with myself and BPTS along with Trails and Paths on these issues. I believe that BPTS is knowledgeable and aware of it and actively trying to find a way to address it.
Great. Right. So, other questions? Nope, those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I have a few questions, and then Darcy, to your point, I mean, there's some typos and stuff here. So we can fix those after we've approved this, right?
Yeah.
As long as they're not substantial changes.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Typos, fine, but adding more content, if you make it as a motion, we will make it. It's just the closer it is to done.
Yeah, that's fine. I have like 15 comments, but 4 of them are material for questions now, and the rest could just be done offline because they're things like less and fewer and those kind of issues. So I guess a couple of questions for you, Robert. I noticed, ensure the San Mateo County Sheriff Office reports monthly to BPTS. I was wondering if that couldn't be the police commissioner and then have the police commissioner talk to BPTS. So it seems like that's something that you might want to consider.
Can you provide the page?
It's on page 8 under the executive summary. It's in the bulleted second bullet item.
Yeah, I think that can be changed, no problem. Yeah.
Wait. Could you say that one again?
Okay, so right now it says ensure San Mateo County Sheriff's Office reports monthly to BPTS. And I was asking whether we couldn't have the sheriff basically report to the police commissioner and have the police commissioner report to BPTS.
I think it's, well, yeah, I mean, is this a question? Yeah.
There's a question. I'm asking the question. Yeah. So
I could speak to that.
I think this is an objective that was originally provided by BPTS. I think it might make sense to change this language to sheriff's representative, as far as if there's a goal specifically to have a specific person report to BPTS, I'd have to leave it up to BPTS, and if they feel that's a reasonable goal and what their goal is on that one.
Well, the chairman is the police commissioner, and he wants this input from the police commission.
Right. I mean, this is sort of a policy question for the council. That's why I was
Yeah,
bringing it.
yeah, I
So,
feel like
I'm-
it.
and
it
so we can
enriches.
talk more, when we get to discussion. I just wanted to bring it up as a question for now. So then, this is a minor one. I'll leave that one and that one. So then more substantive, there's a series of figures 14, 30, and 31. I think these are all maps. They look like maps from the Geologic Safety Committee. And I think that we should have them referenced as being from the Geologic Safety Committee. Because as of now, they're sort of unreferenced. They're just in there. Whereas a lot of other stuff said it came from USGS or whatever. So is it possible to basically find out the provenance of these and just label them as such?
It is, again, I believe that if, as this is currently a resolution, to input, these changes would have to be included in the motion. But yes, it is.
Fine.
I guess I would just want to note that there is a reference on page 30 of the report, 166 of the packet, that the town's Geologic Safety Committee created the map.
Right, but figure 14, that's much earlier, I think is the same map
Oh,
and doesn't have it. So there's 14, 30, and 31. I think they're all different versions of the same map. And just make it uniform and and it'd be nice to just have it say under the figure, provided by Geologic Safety Committee, rather than you have to read the text above it to figure out, whereas the other ones were like, courtesy of USGS or whatever. Just make them consistent would be the question I was asking. So,
yeah.
Okay. Great. Any other questions before?
I have
Yep.
one follow-up I meant to ask. So the BPTS kind of sort of involves equestrians, but kind of sort of doesn't, and there's been references included in here. But because this is for potential grants, and some of those grants, if made, could also benefit pedestrians and equestrians. So for example, on page 20, we talk about ensure the committee gets access to plans and then evaluate opportunity for pedestrian sidewalks, et cetera. Is there a benefit, given the nature of this and the use of it, to occasionally referencing in a couple of situations, and I can reference those, where the grant could also benefit an equestrian use? So for example, if horses do spook, that can cause a traffic accident, or it can cause a pedestrian or a bicyclist incident. And so separating some of those uses or having them be a little bit farther apart could be something eventually we want to do. So is there a benefit, or is the use of this, is that impractical given the nature of the grants you envision seeking, such that this isn't going to help us on that? Like if it can create more dollars, I would err on the side of asking for equestrian uses to also be referenced here, because that might help us get more dollars. But if that's not going to result in it, I don't want to overcomplicate things here.
Can I speak to that for a minute?
Sure.
Oftentimes in grant applications, all that they say is, was this, project or site in a plan? That's it. And you just say in the grant
The site,
application.
it's not the use.
Right. You just say, yep, and you can even, yeah. So I would, and
It might be there anyway, is the point. And so there's only a few instances like that's on page 20. I would probably throw in pedestrian sidewalks or other roads. And in particular, grading of the roads at certain junctures with
curbs.
the curbs and the roads actually would make everybody safer. So, and that can be expensive because a lot of people, if they cross your driveway, you're supposed to fund that yourself, but it ends up being pretty expensive. So this is minor. I don't want to take too much time on it, but would that be something that you think might make sense to throw in?
There, oh, are we on discussion or are we still?
No,
on
we're-
vote?
No,
still-
no, I
still
just
a
wanted
question.
his view.
Yeah.
That's a question for Robert.
I think reasonable minds may differ. I think it's justifiable that any trail that is listed as a multi-use trail, including for pedestrian, equestrian, so on and so forth, would benefit to improvements of any of the user groups to make all user groups more safe.
Okay.
I do not believe it necessarily need to be called out specifically. And I think that there's a question if you do call it out as to whether it would be separate per se, if you were to pursue grant funding for one thing, that it might be a percentage versus it makes everyone more safe. I don't think there's really a need to call it out separately.
Yeah.
Um,
The instance I have in mind, the crossing right across from the town center going up. And that was not graded for a while and there were incidents, not major luckily. And so people were like looking at each other like, I'm not grading that. That's expensive. And so it ended up being a standoff. Again, I don't want to disrupt the flow because the major focus is very important here. But if there could be an incremental reference that could help us, I just wanted to know. Anyway, we can move on.
What page was that? What page were you referring to?
Well, where it occurred to me was page 20, but I'm not sure that's the perfect place to put it. Pedestrian sidewalks there, this was a crosswalk. So, you could end up saying sidewalks or crosswalks. It is pedestrian, so if the use is already inherent, you might just want to expand that. It's a very minor. That would be minor. And I don't think it's worth taking the time to revisit every single use in here. I'm just looking for a little enhancement should a grant be extendable.
So you're wanting to put crosswalks, the word crosswalks?
Or sidewalks or crosswalks. Yep. I think that, that kind of thing, just to help a little bit. And again, I don't want to distract from the major import of this plan, which is important to the town.
Do I, is it?
Go ahead,
I'm
Mary.
done.
Is this scoring? Have we got scoring down here in some, scoring of driveways?
I would need to look through it, but I think that's certainly one of the elements that's discussed is
Yeah, I may
making
have missed
the
it.
crossings more safe.
And I have, while we're in questions, a quick question. Rebecca, the priority conservation area, is that approved? Or is that still, so that's done, right? Because there's a comment in here that says the town is applying for, so I think it's actually already done, so. Yeah, page 21. Yeah, there's a couple like that I would ask. I mean, I think that the church put in their little bicycle area with the tools and stuff. I think it says that the church was going to do it. I think it's actually done. So there's some small things like that feel like this was written a while ago and they're kind of minor corrections. All right, any other questions from the council? No? Mary?
I think I got it.
Okay, great. Let me open this up to public comment. So there's no one left in the schoolhouse. I don't mean, okay. So, all right. Let me refrain. There are no members of the public. We have two members of staff in the schoolhouse, which we appreciate them being here. So let me start with Dave Cardinal. Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, I think first of all, the report is stunning. I read every single page, which most people probably haven't. And I love it. But I think we're in danger of burying the forest for the trees, and that it is highly unlikely we'll get any real grant money because honestly, we had turned out not to be needy community, which was the original purpose of this. But I think the bigger picture is this is what we should be working on. And, hoping that a Hail Mary will come and people write us a big check, I think is aspirational. But let's read through it and talk about what it means we, Al Franken, need to do about our traffic safety. And I think that's the bigger discussion. And there's tons of stuff in there, the accident report, the possible improvements. I get that we don't have money per se, but I think it's up to us to take that on. And I don't know, like wordsmithing to hope that Gavin Newsom's going to write us a check is like pretty aspirational. So I would like to see us take all the recommendations in the report as if we own them one way or another. And we may not have money to do any of them, or we may, or whatever. But I think it's on us to decide how important they are, whether we care about any particular result, and deal with it as our town council and our government, rather than, I don't care if we wordsmith the thing. I don't think that's going to make any difference. If we get a few bucks, great. If we don't want to spend our own money on traffic safety, that's to be decided. It's up to us. But I think it's really, this report shows us, here is what we could do to prevent more crashes and maybe save more lives or more injuries. And then we get to decide if that's how we want to spend our money. It can be expensive. I'm not saying one way or the other, but I think the real discussion is, how much do we want to do to address the issues in this report? Or do we want to go, yeah, okay, we have other priorities. It's not something we're going to spend money on. So that's based on a fair amount of informative discussion with the committee and other people. So that's my thought to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Christy Corley, you're up next.
Yes, thank you. I thank you for the thorough report. I do have one comment that the accidents go through 2024, and we've had a number of things happen in 2025. Page 24, page 160, depending which one you look at, it lists 3 locations, and I might add a 4th location right outside my house. That being the entrance to Alpine Swim and Tennis, and when people stop at Golden Oak and they go straight across, we're having a number of accidents. And I can list 4: 7/24/21, 5/28/22, 3/5/25, and most recently 11/20/25. So I would like to see an amendment to have that area looked into as to how it can be done better to decrease incidences of hitting 2 bicyclists and cars hitting cars. So that's my proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. Ed Holland, you're up next. Ed is the chair of BPTS.
Okay, hi, can you all hear me?
We can. Go ahead.
Excellent. Very good. Well, first of all, I'd like to shout out a huge effort to the members of my committee that have already been mentioned. Some of which sadly no longer are members of the committee, but certainly Angela, who rightly you said did a lot of the heavy lifting, but also Pat and Caroline, big effort there. And also to Robert for jumping in on this right from the get-go as the new guy in town, and helping to steer that with the final preparations and editing so that we can get where we are today, and also for internalizing the plan and really taking it on board so that it can be presented in the proper light. Thank you very much, Robert. There's been a little bit talked about this. It's come out to, I think, a very good conclusion from what was a difficult start, where we were receiving a lot of pressure from CCAG and the team at San Mateo County to put this in place immediately. We've got a short deadline. We've got a lot to get through. If you don't do this, we won't get our county-wide local roadway safety plan in place in time, and such like. And so what we received was that initial draft that very much didn't fit what we would want to say and see as part of the safety policy that we choose to implement for ourselves, which is the things that we were already doing as BPTS and working with our always excellent town staff. So in fact, what this does is then provides the framework that if we do go to the county and we think we've got a reasonable opportunity to apply for a grant, it says, look, we mean business. We know what we're doing. We know the risks, the potential rewards, and the areas in town that make sense and don't make sense to take action. So that's already understood as part of that process going in. And like you said, if there's already been said, if something's not in a plan already and previously identified, it doesn't get the same marks as something where you said, well, we've had this on our list to take action for a good amount of time. It's something that we understand. And I think the final comment that I would like to put is that a lot of the local roadway safety plan for the county also is seeking to incorporate lots of elements in something called Vision Zero. And it may be incumbent upon us to ratify and signify that if we were to pursue further taking on grants. So I'd like to have the committee spend more time on what might be implicated as well by going to next steps beyond approving this plan, which I absolutely recommend the council. I hope that the council will do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ed, and thanks for the background as well. Is there any other public comment?
Is there any chance I could ask Ed a question?
Sure.
How does that work?
Why not? Through the
Let's
chair.
see how through the chair. Can I ask
Ed,
you, Ed, how you feel about adding another spot at Golden Oaks and Portola Road? Danger spot? Things as we learned that there wasn't those accidents weren't reported.
I think we could. Our original brief was to include, I think it was 5 and have a minimum of 5. I don't believe there was a maximum. So yeah, potentially that could be included, but we had approved this for council. We had forwarded this for council approval really based on minor changes only. I'm sure it's okay for things to come up, in the future. Life changes, situations change. So you can't keep writing for the future. So I don't really know how to answer your question.
Can I speak to this as the
we're
still
on question.
I know, to this question because Angela got all of her data from TIMS, the Transportation Injury Mapping by UC Berkeley, which gathers all of the injury in the reports from the police. So that's why there's that lag time between what is in the report from 2024, because that they are just updating their database slowly but surely. So there is the lag. I recognize we've had those accidents. I'm hesitating because I would not support adding it just because it depends how they've quantified those accidents. So I hesitate to do that because I'd like the data to be consistent. So
yeah,
I wanted to speak to that.
Okay, so
May I make a further comment through the chair?
Yeah, yes, but I some of this I want to hold for discussion. I mean, it's starting to get away from questions to discussion. I think it's a good discussion. I guess I'd like to ask a question, though, I think that might incorporate all this stuff is it reasonable, Robert, for us to, or for BPTS to review this in a year or two, and then potentially get additional traffic data, et cetera? Would that be the right method to sort of incorporate this stuff?
Yes, it'd be reasonable to review this and to either publish a revised version or amend this version. Ultimately, the goal of this is to get this out within this year.
Sure.
Prior to the end of this year, to make sure that we get this to the county. As Ed mentioned, the county has been pressuring us for quite some time to adopt something so they can incorporate into their plan.
Got it. Great. Thank you. So I haven't quite closed public comment. So Angela, I think you're still available for public comment. Go ahead.
I don't know if you'll be able to hear me. I'm on a Muni train in San Francisco, but I would say that the original county plan only went to 2022, and I took ours to be more up to it. And it's not the final plan. We don't have a strategic plan. This part of the general plan. There will be more plans to come. This is just one of the many plans that we actually need.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for that input. All right. Is there any other public comment? All right. Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment and bring it back to the council for discussion. And I will start with Helen this time.
So, like what Dave Cardinal said, I think this is I'm like so impressed by this report. So again, to our BPTS crew, thank you. We definitely, this allows us to opens up the town up to be able to apply for these grants, the TDM grant for the parking, for instance. I was looking at who got the awards today, and for small and coastal towns, it was not fully subscribed, and they gave 400,000 or 500,000 extra that they had lying around to the bigger cities, right? Who had applied for it. And they didn't have enough money over in that pot, but we have 30% of the measured A and W that we have not been eligible for without this. So I definitely support this and approval. My only other comment is it's hard to read the legends on and so I hope that I think we can approve it without needing, but if you can please make sure that the legends from the data are more clear. At least on my computer, I had a hard time reading the legends. So thank you. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Helen. Judith?
Yeah, it's great to see this coming together. It's really important for our community to have this information, and I do encourage us to update on a reasonable time basis, because as additional development in town happens, we're going to need to monitor the impact on the community. So lovely to see all the work and clarity that went into it. I would just request politely, it's not going to be a big deal, but I think adding the sidewalks and crosswalks would be a helpful thing on page 20 at the bottom. But I also want to make sure that the legends are accurate. Our Geologic Safety Committee put a lot of effort into these maps, and it's important to know where to trace through the source of information. I assume that's not controversial. And just want to make sure that people understand that this is a document that isn't us setting an agenda and specific commitments for dollars for projects, because we are at a time when we're really being very conservative about our commitments to large spend when we don't have the grant yet. So it's important to keep iterating that. And I don't think that changes the document. I think it changes how we reference this and how we're using it. So an updated plan that we can track where our concerns are and be constructive on how to solve them. That's how I look at this, and I support it because of that, and congratulate all the people that contributed to it. But we as a council have to, in the future, take this information and filter it into our own priority setting and budgeting process. And that's to come. It's not that all of these issues aren't important. It's just, you've got to figure out where to start and with the budget you've got. So that's not changing the plan itself. So I support it, subject to that one request.
Thank you, Judith. Mary? Mike?
I am very excited about this. I think it's really timely and that we can get some money with it, maybe.
Mike's off.
It fits in well with what Rebecca's been working on as well. I had two things that I do feel that I would like. First of all, I think that there is money, believe it or not, for horse trails and for horse crossings and for scoring and so forth that we can get with this. Like WHOA, the Woodside Horse Owners Association, the Mounted Patrol Foundation, they're actively funding these kinds of projects. So even though we may not be needy in some ways, there are some fundings available. So I'm kind of excited about it for lots of reasons. I am probably going to make a motion to approve it with two addendums, or two addendums. One being, I'm considering doing this with the sidewalks and the crosswalks and the scoring for crosswalks. That Judith had suggested, and the second being to add US cycling to the list. It is the top of the list. It is the Olympic riders came through our town at high speed. It's very exciting. It could be a wonderful thing for us to be aware of them doing it, but not so great if we're not aware of them doing it. And so I think it's worth putting them on there. And I don't know whether we have to put them on the annual event list, because they say it's going to be an annual event, and I offered to work with them to make it a success next time instead of making it a major community disaster, which it was for Woodside. So that being said, I think it's worth putting them on the list so we're reminded what their names are. And it would be fun to use or fun is not a good word, but to use our repair station and everything and really do a fuss about having Olympians going through our town rather than having a negative experience. So those are the two things that I had. I would add scoring if needed on the sidewalks and crosswalks where Judith wanted it to be put.
Thank you, Mary. Okay.
Well, I want to thank Angela Hay and the BPTS. This is just an incredible piece of art almost. The amount of work that I know Angela and her other volunteers put in is just amazing. And the town is so lucky to have such expertise volunteering their time for us. So again, thank you so much for doing this. I, as the liaison for CCAG, my very first day on CCAG, when I got my introduction, the director made a point to point out that Portola Valley was one of the few towns in the whole county that has not yet submitted their local roadway safety plan, and encouraged and insisted that we get this done. So I am so appreciative that BPTS put in the time, and our staff, Robert and Corey, helped move this along so that it's ready for us to approve it. I think it's, one of the things that shows that our town is moving forward, that we're getting all the little loose things that we haven't had time to work on getting them done. So I'm completely in favor of getting this moving forward with this. I did want to mention just when we go out to approve it again with some of these little amendments, I also had a few the typos I think are different, but I did want to mention Appendix B has lost all its colors. So I don't know if that was just something that happened when it got put into the agenda packet. But there should been some streets red or brown. So if we could just put that on the list for the amendments to confirm that those colors are correct. I did want to say that I do support adding the crosswalks and the scoring, but I don't actually support adding the sidewalks. I think there's a lot of issues around sidewalks. The town has always been against sidewalks in general. And they are an issue, as Craig and I have been working on the safety element. When you look at the flooding issues, of which Portola Valley is starting to have more issues with flooding, I think we have to be real careful about curbs. And sidewalks tend to include curbs. So I think there's a lot more discussion that needs to happen around sidewalks. So I wouldn't be in favor of adding sidewalks, but I would be in favor at this point. I think they need discussion. I would definitely be in favor of adding crosswalks and scoring to the page 20. So I think those are my comments.
Rebecca, I just had a quick question through the chair. When you say you don't want to add, the word sidewalks already in there. So just to be clear, I was just thinking of modifying that phrasing to say sidewalks and crosswalks and scoring of crosswalks or something like that.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that. I thought you said, my understanding was it wasn't.
Yeah, so you don't want to remove it, though, that's the question.
Oh, so again, page 20, again, where are we? I just want to make sure I'm looking at the
The
right
lower
thing.
right box.
Lower right, the lowest right box?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Evaluate the opportunity for pedestrian sidewalks. And so at that point, you want to add sidewalks, crosswalks, and scoring.
And
That's the
scoring of
idea.
the, yeah.
Pavement
scoring
scoring,
thereof, yeah.
pavement scoring. Oh, okay, since it's there, I was looking at a different box, so, okay, yeah, I think it's fine that it's there because it's saying evaluate, so it would definitely be considered whether it interfered with the routing of water. Thanks for clarifying that. Yeah.
Okay, other discussion? Well, I think so. Let me try to recount what I've heard and then see if we can make a motion. So I think I heard we're adding crosswalks and scoring. I had made a request that we add for figures 14, 30, and 31 that reference to Geologic Safety Committee. Mary had asked that we add US cycling, and Rebecca asked to make sure that Appendix B had brown, and that was the headers. Is that what you're talking about?
It's actually various streets. It's the streets that are close to schools are supposed to be indicated red or brown. So some of them, the colors got lost in the packet. So it may be a packet problem and not an actual document problem.
Okay.
But it's Appendix B.
Appendix B, yes.
So did I capture?
No,
Okay, what else did I
the
miss?
clarification of the, not the matrix, the legend,
Okay.
please. Well,
No, that's good. We'll put it down. So
Which,
I put
which
that-
legend?
For the geologic safety, I think it's on 30 and 31. There's a legend there, and Helen was saying it wasn't readable. So
Okay.
get the legend clear. Yeah, readable.
and,
I already said that.
and
I did
could I
say
get
that.
clarification on the US cycling situation? Because I am not familiar with that situation.
It was just a simple incident where there was a confrontation between a horse and the group of bicycles, and they were filming at the same time because the Olympic people were all biking together and they were taking up the entire street. And it was a narrow place where the trail was close. And so there was an incident that happened and they rerouted it out of Woodside through Portola Valley. So, yeah, so without notifying, it was on a Sunday.
So is this an annual event that they're doing this?
They're hoping for an annual event. Because I got involved, I said I would help them make it into a positive thing for their community, for their US cycling. Because it's a big fundraiser for them, for the Olympic team. And if they can have a positive thing happen, but the problem was it wasn't obvious to them that they needed to do permitting for such a thing. And that it would be to their advantage to do it because they would then have PR and an opportunity to make some donors happy.
All right. So I think that's the list and then.
No, you had also mentioned two other items. The PCA had been approved, so that language needed to be corrected. I don't know what page that was on.
Right.
And then you said the church had put in their water fountain repair station or something?
Right. So I was going to try to finish up. So the major ones I heard from their council members. And then, like I said, I have a series of a half a dozen edits and I put those in that category. They're not material in the sense that they're factual. So if you're okay, I would ask that I sit down with Robert and I'll just go through my edits and, like I said, or I can go through them now, but I was just hoping to.
No.
They
But
should
I
be-
have some minor typos too. So
so if
I
you
think
could-
we just add that as the amendment, that
That'd be fine.
including minor typos.
Okay. So does that capture? So I'd entertain a motion to that effect.
Oh, I was really looking forward to giving the motion, but I'm not going to do it. 'Cause she did such a beautiful job. CEQA exempt and all that, but
Okay.
go ahead and move it and I'll second it. No.
No, I'm asking for a motion.
Well, I can make the motion to approve the local roadway safety plan with the list that the mayor provided and with the addition of any minor typos from the council members.
Second?
Okay. We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Thank you, Robert. And again, thank you to Robert and thank you to BPTS. This really is a fabulous report. I look forward to when we get our capital projects to have this as one of the inputs.
Wow. Sean at CCAG will be I know, Rebecca, you have to be sure to let Sean know.
Yes.
No.
He will be happy.
Sean.
He's the executive director for CCAG.
Oh, yeah, Sean.
Yeah.
We know
Okay.
Sean.
So, all right, you unruly council members. God, I tell you, you get a new mayor and that's what happens. So, all right. So let's move on to agenda number 9. Are there any oral subcommittee liaison or regional agency reports? Looking left, looking right, I see none. All right, let me see if there's any public comment. Looking in the schoolhouse, now there truly is no one but the people at the dais. And I see no one with their hands raised online. So we'll move on to item number 10. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, everyone.
Good meeting.
Woohoo.